that in itself, unfortunately, is contrarian to the popular way of living and or let's say common way of living right now. You mentioned in the book being a little bit of a rascal growing up, and that seems like it's still echoed in a different way, right? A productive
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
You mentioned the idea of heretic. You actually mentioned it earlier. uh, you know, Oprah, Steve Jobs, the Gandhi, etc., and doing things differently to get the results that are actually desired. Do you have a favorite heretic, by the way?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, definitely Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs is one. Um, what I found fascinating about Steve Jobs was not so much his relational skills. I didn't find so fascinating.
Sure.
um, but what I did find fascinating was his provocative fierceness to questions, like simplicity in questions. To me, I just found like, wow. So one of them was, 1,000 songs in your pocket. That was the basis for the early, I don't know, is it iPod? It was the original.
iPod. Yeah. Hmm.
And so he just said, let's start with something like that. Like, here's what I want. I want 1,000 songs in my pocket. And people were like, what? What are you talking about? Like, well, that's a room full of equipment. How could we possibly do that? And he's like, I don't care. That's what I want. That's what we're going to do. And I love those, that I put in the book, that one of the things that he put was, in his world, computers, that low cost wins. That's the industry he was in. But what he envisioned as a heretic was design wins. Design, sexy, something that belongs like in a museum. Well, that is like he's smoking something, and actually he probably was, it's so, I love those kind of people that are willing to say, Elon Musk is one that I find interesting these days. My son lives in Los Angeles, and he was talking about how Elon wants to solve the traffic problem. I'm going to build a tunnel. Yes, not we're going to build a bigger highway, or we're going to double stack it. It's the 405 and the 5 and 605. They're nightmare highways. You're like, no, we're going to. So I'm listening to a book right now called The Future is Faster Than You Think. And it's about flying cars and all kinds of other things that are underway. So those questions I find similar to these kinds of questions we're asking about life and about work and about impact, which are, where is life? Sustainable life. And where do you actually find it? And whose responsibility is it? And what must it be rooted in? So, back to your question about meaning and purpose, all of this for me wraps into these questions about, and what's my life really about? And what am I here to do? And is it ashes to ashes and dust to dust? Or is there something more going on here? And if so, then how can I tap into the more? And so, again, for me, that's deeply rooted in a life with God, so that I can then, in turn, hopefully, my intention is to give it away, to then provide back with generosity and grace. Here are the things I found. Try them on yourself. It's not a prescription, but it is an invitation to take a journey to explore your own interior life, to prioritize your inner work on equal with your outer work, so that you can maximize both and actually have more peace, joy, freedom, intimacy, connection, meaning, and purpose in your life.